funny thing, isn't it? How two people can spend the same amount of money, but one ends up trapped and the other walks free. You see it every day, even if no one talks about it directly. A poor man walks into a store, buys the same watch the rich man wears, same logo, same shine, but it costs him everything, while the rich man forgets he even bought it. Now that might sound unfair, and maybe it is, but fairness was never the point in this world. Understanding is. So I ask you, do the rich waste money just like the poor? At first glance, maybe. They both buy what they don't need. They both chase comfort, appearance, or a moment's pleasure. They both have closets full of things they forgot they bought, shoes that were never worn, gadgets that were exciting for a day then put away. But here's where it turns. Here's what no one tells you. It's not just what you buy, it's what it costs you. Because money isn't just money. Not when you're poor. It's energy, it's survival, it's your breath, your hours, your worry. It's the food your children might not eat if you guess wrong. It's the bus fare you'll scramble to find next week. So when a poor man spends, it hurts. And when it hurts, it lingers. It shapes how he sees money. As a constant source of tension, as a thing that slips away, no matter how tight he holds on. The rich man, he buys something foolish. It doesn't change the shape of his month. It doesn't haunt him at night. He doesn't sit in silence wondering if that purchase was the moment everything went wrong. That's the difference, not the object, but the consequence. Because when you're poor, waste has a shadow. It follows you. It whispers at you. It reminds you that the margin for error is razor thin. But that's only part of the story. Because there's something deeper, something quieter, and it has nothing to do with bank accounts. I've seen people with little who still live with discipline, still build wisely, still choose to spend not for the moment, but for the long game. And I've seen the rich burn through millions just to fill a hole in their chest, buy houses they never enter, throw parties where no one really smiles, waste not because they can, but because they're lost too, just in a bigger house. So the question isn't just, do the rich waste money like the poor? It's this: what does your spending say about your wounds? That's where this begins, not with judgment, not with blame, but with an honest look inward. Because waste is never about the money itself. It's about what you're trying to cover up, what you're trying to feel, what you haven't healed. Money doesn't vanish, it obeys you. It follows your beliefs, your fears, your patterns. And most of the time, it reveals them. You want to know who you are? Look at your bank statement, not to punish yourself, but to understand, because money, in your hands, is just an echo of your decisions, a mirror of your story. Some people waste money to feel rich. Others waste it to feel loved. And a few, they waste it to forget, to bury the noise inside. But money doesn't forget. It remembers every choice you make, even the ones you try to ignore. That's why most people don't like talking about it. Not really, because it's not just about dollars and cents. It's about self-worth, about dignity, about the deep, quiet fear of not being enough. And the tragedy is, whether rich or poor, that fear sounds the same. So no, the rich don't waste money like the poor, but both waste it from the same place. A place of longing, a place that wants to be seen, to feel safe, to matter. Until you face that place in you, until you stop treating money as a fix or as a shield, you will waste it, no matter how much you make or how little you have. And that's where most people stay stuck, because they think the problem is the money, but it never was. It's the pain behind the purchase. And if you don't face that pain, you'll keep reaching for things, while life keeps slipping through your hands. You see two men walking side by side. wearing the same shoes, driving the same car, living in houses that seem equally grand, but you look a little closer, and you notice something odd. One of them walks lightly, with no weight in his eyes. The other carries something invisible, a tightness in the shoulders, a silence that speaks louder than words. You wouldn't know it just by looking. But one is drowning, and the other is floating. Same appearance, same possessions, but the relationship to money, completely different. That's what I mean when I say it's not about the purchase. It's about the price. And I don't just mean the numbers on a receipt. I mean the emotional cost, the mental cost, the life cost. The poor man buys something, and now he owes, not just the bank, but himself, his future, his peace, his safety. The rich man buys the same thing, and nothing changes. His world doesn't shift. His foundation remains intact. But here's the danger, and it comes quietly when the poor man tries to imitate the surface of wealth. He forgets that wealth isn't surface at all. It's structure, it's strategy, it's restraint. Not everyone who drives a Mercedes is rich, and not everyone who lives simply is poor. But this world loves illusion. It rewards the appearance of success more than the substance of it. So people learn to perform prosperity. Long before they've built it, they learn to dress the part, eat the part, speak the part, and in doing so, they trade real progress for temporary pride. I say this gently because I've done it too. I've bought things to feel caught up, to silence that voice that said I was behind, that I wasn't enough, that I hadn't made it yet. But money doesn't fix insecurity. It just hides it behind prettier walls, and before long, you find yourself living that double life, rich in appearance, poor in foundation. This is how waste becomes a trap, not because of the amount, but because of the intention. You see, the rich don't waste money the same way, because their foundation absorbs the blow. Their system, their network, their assets, they act like a cushion. They can recover, they can afford mistakes, they build margin, they build time, they build choice. But the poor, they live on the edge of survival. One wrong purchase can set them back months, and that's not always their fault. But it is their responsibility to understand. That's the part no one wants to hear, because it feels unfair. But it's the truth. You can't afford to copy the spending of someone who doesn't live with your same limits. You can admire wealth, you can learn from it, but if you mimic it too soon, it will hollow you out. It's like planting seeds in shallow soil. Looks good for a moment, then withers, because the roots were never deep enough. And the cruelest part? The world will still praise your surface, still applaud your outfit, still compliment your car, while you're quietly sinking. That's how poverty sustains itself, not just through lack, but through illusion. The illusion that you're doing better than you are, the illusion that you can fake your way to wealth. But real wealth is quiet, it's built in private, it grows slow. It doesn't scream for attention, because it doesn't need to. So I ask you, when you spend money, are you trying to prove something, or are you planting something? Are you seeking status, or are you building structure? Because every purchase is a message, every dollar is a vote, either for the life you want, or the lie you're afraid to let go of. Waste isn't just about what you buy, it's about what you abandon in the process. And for many, they abandon their future to protect a fragile present. But here's the good news. You can turn it around, not by making more, but by seeing more, seeing your patterns, seeing your wounds, seeing the truth behind your choices. Because once you see, you can choose, and once you choose, you can build, even if it's slow, even if it hurts, even if no one else claps for you yet. That's the path the rich walk that no one sees, and that's The path anyone can begin, even you, right where you are. There's a weight behind every dollar you spend, but most people never feel it until it's too late. They swipe, they tap, they take the bag and walk away. And for a while, it feels like freedom. It feels like choice, like power in the palm of your hand. But what you don't see is the story trailing behind that dollar. The invisible thread tied to the moment you earned it, the time you gave, the hours you'll never get back, the sleep you lost, the sacrifice you made. And when you look at money this way, not as a thing to spend, but as a piece of your life that you traded away, you begin to see the difference between rich waste and poor waste. Because when the poor waste money, they are often spending their future. They're cashing in a chance they haven't yet earned, pulling joy from tomorrow just to feel okay today. Debt becomes the silent predator. Buy now, pay forever. And every payment isn't just money leaving, it's possibility shrinking, it's doors closing, it's time slipping through your fingers unnoticed. But no one explains this to you when you're young. No one tells you that $100 wasted at 20 can cost you $10,000 in lost compounding by 40. Because the price isn't just in the spending, it's in what that money could have become. You don't just lose a dollar. You lose what that dollar could have grown into, what it could have built, what it could have rescued you from later. Rich, they know this. That's why even the wealthiest have budgets. That's why they track expenses. That's why some of them still clip coupons. Not because they're afraid of losing money, but because they respect it. You hear that word often in quiet circles of the truly wealthy. Respect. Not obsession, not fear, but respect. Because they know what money can do when you give it time. When you let it breathe. When you use it like a tool instead of a drug. See, most poor spending isn't about greed. It's about pain. Pain that's never been named. Pain that whispers, you deserve this. You've suffered enough. You're behind, catch up. You need this to feel valuable. And in that moment, the purchase becomes a form of medicine. But medicine taken too often, without healing the root, becomes poison. I don't say this to shame you. I say this because I've lived long enough to see where it leads. To sit beside men in their 50s who wish they could talk to their 30-year-old selves. To hold the hand of women who gave so much to others. They forgot to save even a sliver for themselves. And in every story, there's a moment, a turning point, where they realized they weren't just spending money, they were spending themselves. Their identity, their peace, their options. That's the part no one teaches. When you're poor, you're not just trying to earn money, you're trying to escape something. Escape judgment, escape boredom, escape feeling less than in a world that glorifies more. But escape is temporary. Only building gives you ground to stand on, and building isn't glamorous, it's quiet, it's repetitive, it's boring sometimes. It's saying no 100 times so you can say yes once, with strength, not fear. But here's what I'll tell you. After all these years, after all the conversations and observations and regrets I've witnessed, the poor waste money trying to look like they're not poor. The rich waste money when they forget why they became rich. But the wise, they use money with care, with patience, with reverence, because they know money is not the goal, it's the fuel. And if you burn it all on decoration, you'll never get to your destination. So next time you're about to spend, pause, ask yourself, what am I really paying for? Is it the thing in my hand, or the feeling I haven't learned to sit with yet? Because until you face what's underneath, the spending will never satisfy, and you'll keep asking why you never feel ahead, even when your shelves are full. There's a quiet truth most people miss because it doesn't shout, it doesn't sparkle. It doesn't sell well in ads or social media posts, but it's there, like the steady beat beneath the noise. What you feed will grow, and what you neglect will wither. It's that simple and that brutal. You feed your ego with spending. It grows louder, more demanding, harder to satisfy. You feed your future with discipline. It grows stronger, more stable, able to carry you, even when life doesn't go to plan. Now tell me, what have you been feeding? Not in theory, but in practice, day after day, year after year. Because waste, whether rich or poor, is usually just the symptom, the result of feeding the wrong thing for too long. Some feed loneliness through constant purchases meant to keep them company. Some feed insecurity through clothing and gadgets they hope will make them matter. Some feed comparison, buying what others have just to avoid feeling left behind, but no one talks about it that way. They say, I deserve this. I work hard. It was on sale. It's not that much. And slowly, they train themselves to confuse reward with relief. They reward their stress, relieve their boredom, soothe their shame, but call it treating themselves. And the problem isn't the spending. It's that it never heals. It only delays. Now when you have wealth, true wealth, you can afford a delay. You can afford indulgence now and then. You've already built the shelter so a little rain doesn't flood the house. But when you're still building, when your roof is made of borrowed material, when your walls are thin and your savings are fragile, you don't have the luxury of pretending you're already safe. This is what most people don't want to admit, that trying to live like the rich before you've built what they've built will cost you more than money. It will cost you your peace, your momentum, your time. You know what's harder than poverty? Trying to escape poverty with the habits that created it. Spending to feel like you've arrived when you haven't even started the real journey yet. Trying to keep up appearances when your foundation is cracking beneath you. I say this not to judge, but to remind you, you are not less because you're starting from less. You are not behind because you've chosen to build slowly, carefully, quietly. You are not missing out when you say no to that trip, that outfit, that dinner, that shiny object that will only impress people who don't even think about you after they scroll past. You're feeding your future, and what you feed will grow. But here's the hard part. The results don't show right away, and that's why most people quit. They want the fruit without planting the seed, without watering, without waiting. They forget. Even the strongest tree spent years underground, invisible, growing roots, before it ever broke through the surface. The rich you see now, most of them, the real ones, not the loud ones, they spent years in the dirt, saying no, living beneath their means, studying while others partied, investing while others consumed. And now they walk through life differently, not because they're better, but because they fed the right thing, long enough for it to feed them back. So no, the rich don't waste money like the poor. Because the ones who became rich through wisdom know exactly how dangerous waste can be. Even when you can afford it, they don't fear poverty, but they respect it because they remember it. They know how easy it is to fall back when you stop paying attention, when you start feeding ego instead of structure, comfort instead of growth, noise instead of clarity. And that's the real divide. Not rich versus poor, but awake versus asleep. The awake person watches their money like a garden, tending it, protecting it, knowing one careless season can undo years of work. The asleep person treats it like a lottery ticket, spending with hope, buying without purpose, blaming the world when nothing changes. So let me ask you again, softly. This time, what have you been feeding? And is it taking you where you want to go? Because one day, the harvest comes, and you'll either reap regret or you'll gather peace, not because you were lucky, but because you were awake and you fed the right thing when no one was watching. You ever sit alone after a purchase and feel that strange, quiet emptiness? The excitement fades, the bag's in the corner, the receipt's already lost, and there you are, left with the same thoughts, the same worries, the same ache that the thing was supposed to fix. That moment, right there, is where the truth hides. Because waste isn't loud, it's not always reckless, it's not always a brand new car or a shopping spree. Sometimes it's subtle, polite, wrapped in logic. It was a good deal. I needed something to feel better. It's only once. But under all that, there's silence, and that silence carries a message. It says, you're trying to solve an emotional problem with a financial answer. You're trying to fix loneliness with luxury, insecurity with labels, shame with something shiny, and that never works for long. Even the rich fall into this trap. They may not feel it in their bank account, but they feel it in their spirit. They lose track of why they're buying. They forget the weight behind the wealth. And slowly, the spending becomes a distraction, a way to avoid sitting with themselves. But for the poor, that same trap has sharper teeth, because the price isn't just emotional, it's survival. 100 here, 50 there, and suddenly rent is short, groceries are light, debt is higher. The anxiety returns, not because you're lazy, but because you were never taught how to feel without spending. That's the part no one prepared you for. How money becomes emotional long before it becomes logical. You saw it growing up, didn't you? Maybe a parent who blew their paycheck on a Friday night because they were tired, frustrated, trying to feel free for a moment. And then came the silence the next morning. Bills unpaid, tension in the air, no one talked about it, but you felt it, and now? Now you carry that same silence. Even when your life looks different, you try to break the cycle. You say you'll be smarter. You tell yourself you're in control. But every now and then, you slip, and the silence returns. Just like it did when you were a child. That's the part that needs healing. Not your bank account, not first, but your relationship with money. Because until you see spending as a mirror, not just a transaction, you'll keep repeating the same emotional script, even when the dollar amounts change. The rich can waste, yes, but they often waste because they've lost connection to the meaning of money. The poor, they waste because no one ever taught them the purpose of money. But the result is the same, disconnection, and disconnection always leads to damage. You disconnect from your values, from your long-term plans, from the version of yourself you're trying to become. And each unnecessary purchase, it chips away at your confidence, not because of the object itself, but because deep down you knew. You knew it wasn't the answer, and that's where poverty keeps its grip, not just in lack, but in that tiny moment after spending, when you feel worse instead of better, but you don't know what else to do. That's why real change starts not with budgeting apps, or cutting lattes, or financial gurus yelling on the internet. It starts with honesty, with sitting in the silence and asking yourself, what was I hoping this would fix? What was I feeling when I bought that? What pain am I avoiding that keeps costing me more than I can afford? The rich don't always ask these questions because their money cushions the fall. But when you're building, when every dollar still matters, you have to ask not because you're broke, but because you're awake. Because you want something better than performance, better than pretending you've made it, better than numbing yourself with one more quick fix. You want peace, you want strength, you want freedom. Not just financial, but emotional, spiritual, internal. And that doesn't come from spending more. It comes from feeling more, facing more, choosing to stay conscious when the world keeps telling you to check out. So next time you feel the urge to buy something, pause, not forever, just long enough to ask the question behind the silence. And whatever answer comes up, let it guide you, let it teach you, let it free you. Because the person who learns to sit with their discomfort, instead of spending it away, that person, they don't just build wealth, they build wisdom, and that never goes to waste. Now let's step back and ask the deeper question. What does it really mean to waste money? To the poor man, it might look like buying a name brand jacket instead of a basic one. To the rich man, it might be flying private instead of commercial. But both of those choices are only visible wastes. They're just the surface. The real waste is not in spending. It's in what you don't do with your money. You see, a poor person may waste $20 a week on fast food. The rich may waste $20,000 a year on lifestyle inflation. But neither of those numbers are the real problem. What really matters is this: what could that money have done for you? Let's take the poor man's $20 per week. Over a year, that's $1,000. Over 10 years, that's $10,000. If invested properly, it could grow into $20,000 or even $30,000 depending on the vehicle and return. Now, imagine that same man doesn't just waste money. He wastes 10 years of compounding. That is the true poverty. Not lack of money, but lack of multiplication. Rich who become poor again, it's not because they bought a yacht. It's because they forgot to make their money work. The money sat, or it was poured into things that look rich, but yield nothing. A poor man may waste money, but a rich man often wastes potential. And that, my friend, is the most expensive waste of all. Let me tell you a story. A man once inherited $200,000 from his grandfather. At 24 years old, he bought a car, moved into a condo, and lived like a mini celebrity. By 29, he was broke again. Why? Not because the money disappeared overnight, but because it didn't grow. No investments, no income-producing assets, no skills acquired. Just consumption. He didn't waste $200,000. He wasted the seed. That $200,000 could have been the beginning of a new future, a business, a portfolio, a fund for self-education. Instead, it became 5 years of pretending. And once the pretending ended, so did the lifestyle. So now we return to the question: do the rich waste money just like the poor? Maybe, but it's not the money being wasted that defines you. It's whether you're planting seeds or eating them all. Because even the poor can multiply a little, and even the rich can lose everything when they stop multiplying. Money, like time, must work or it rusts. And if it rusts, so does your future. So don't just ask what you're spending. Ask what you're sacrificing. Ask what could have been. If that money had been planted in the right soil, at the right time, with the right intention. Because what you waste today, you might one day need, desperately. And when that day comes, your past choices will speak louder than your excuses. Because you were poor, but because you didn't think like someone who wanted to be rich. And that's the difference. You see, here's a truth no one tells you. Most poor people don't just waste money trying to survive. They waste money trying to look like they're not poor. And that's where the damage runs deep. It's not greed. It's not stupidity. It's shame. When you've grown up lacking. When you've been laughed at for your old shoes or cheap clothes. When you've been told that your worth is tied to your wallet. What do? You try to prove them wrong. Not by getting rich, but by appearing rich. And so begins the trap. You copy what you think rich people do. Buy designer brands, dine at expensive restaurants, drive cars that scream success. But you don't realize wealthy people don't become rich by doing these things. They do them after they're rich, and even then, the truly wealthy don't do it to impress you. The truly wealthy don't buy symbols of wealth to feel validated. They already feel secure in who they are. If they buy luxury, it's often strategic, to open doors, build relationships, or access opportunities. It's a tool, not a trophy. But when the poor imitate this behavior without the foundation, without assets, cash flow, or a long-term strategy, it becomes financial suicide. That $1,500 handbag? For a millionaire, it's 0.01% of their wealth. For someone making $1,500 a month, it's everything. But here's the dangerous illusion. Both the rich and the poor may be wearing the same watch, but only one of them is sinking into quiet debt to do it, and no one sees the debt. No one sees the anxiety. No one sees the deep insecurity fueling those purchases. They just see the appearance, the mask. This is why many poor people stay poor even as they earn more. The income rises, but the spending rises faster. Because the hunger to be seen as successful is louder than the desire to build true wealth. You don't need to mimic the lifestyle of the rich. You need to mimic the thinking behind it. And here's the uncomfortable part. Thinking like the rich doesn't always feel good in the short term. It means restraint. It means driving the old car while you invest. It means saying no to the fancy dinner when your money could buy you peace instead. It means looking poor when you're actually building wealth. It's invisible wealth. Quiet wealth. It won't get applause on Instagram. But one day, you'll be sitting in a house you own, with money growing in the background, and no credit card debt keeping you up at night. And that's when you'll realize you didn't need to look rich to be rich. So the question isn't just, do the rich waste money just like the poor? The deeper question is, why are you spending the way you do? Is it from power or from pain? Because if your spending is driven by pain, no amount of money will ever be enough. You'll always be chasing, always comparing, always trying to heal with purchases what must be healed from within. But if you can spend from a place of peace, from vision, purpose, and clarity, even a small income can build a life of quiet wealth. And that, my friend, is the path most people miss. Now let me take you somewhere we rarely go in these conversations, into the heart of how both the rich and poor spend on dreams. But one spends to build, and the other to escape. And that difference makes all the difference. Let's talk about something most people never question: affordable luxuries. Things that feel like small indulgences, a daily coffee, a cheap vacation, a nice watch bought on credit, a new phone when the old one still works. They don't look like waste. They feel like tiny rewards. And sometimes they are. But here's the trap. If you're poor or middle class and struggling, these small treats aren't treats at all. They're comfort pills. They're quiet ways of saying, I know I'm not winning, but let me feel like I am, just for a moment. And moment after moment, swipe after swipe, comfort becomes a cage. You don't even realize that every affordable luxury is stealing from your future self. Let me say that again, because it's hard to swallow. Every cheap indulgence you buy with your last few dollars is a robbery. You are the thief. And your future is the victim. You see, the rich spend on dreams too. But here's the difference. They spend on dreams that grow. They invest in ideas. They buy leverage. They build systems. They purchase freedom, not escape. It's not about being frugal. It's about being conscious. There's a poor man who will buy a car to look rich, and a rich man who will buy silence so he can think more clearly. One buys for the world's applause. The other buys to make the world bend to his vision. So if you're buying something to feel rich, stop. Buy something that makes you rich instead, even if it's tiny. Even if it's a $10 book instead of a $6 coffee. Start there. Change the pattern. Because the truth is, it's not about how much you waste. It's about what you waste it on. And most of the poor aren't wasting money. They're wasting energy, potential, peace, and years. All for moments of emotional relief. The cost of poverty isn't just financial. It's spiritual. It's what you never become because of what you keep choosing, just to feel better today. Let that truth sink in deeply. My friend, we'll go even deeper in the next part. Now listen carefully. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't about money, not really. It's about the rules of the game, and how most people don't even know a game is being played. You see, money isn't just earned, it's moved, shifted, directed. And those who don't understand this, whether rich or poor, end up being used in the game, not playing it. Let me show you how. Most poor people spend money based on emotion. They feel tired, so they buy a treat. They feel insecure, so they upgrade their look. They feel pressure, so they pay for things to avoid embarrassment. It's not money that's guiding them. It's feeling. And here's the trap. The world is full of people who understand your feelings better than you do. They know when you'll scroll, when you'll click, when you'll spend. And they design everything to trigger that response. That's why your money flows so easily. Not because you're dumb. Not because you're lazy. But because the game was built to outsmart your instincts. Now let's talk about the rich. The real rich. They don't play on emotion. They play on information. They know where the money's going, so they get there first. They buy assets before they become trends. They invest in relationships before they're valuable. They read, listen, watch, not to escape, but to anticipate. They may waste money sometimes, we all do, but they don't waste their focus. And that's the real wealth. Because if your mind is always hijacked by the next notification, the next sale, the next dopamine hit, you'll never have the attention span to see opportunity when it walks right by you. That's what the poor lose the most. Not money, but sight. They can't see the long game. They're trapped in survival mode. And that's exactly where the system wants them to stay. So no. The question isn't, do the rich waste money just like the poor? It's deeper than that. The question is, who's aware of the game? Who knows how they're being played, and who's learning to play back? Because once you see it, really see it, you stop buying to feel better. You start building to get better. You start protecting your attention like treasure. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, does this build the life I want? That's how the game changes. Not in one big move, but in hundreds of small, quiet ones. And we'll talk about that in the final part. So here we are. You've walked with me through the emotions, through the patterns, through the traps, through the reasons money slips through the fingers of those who need it most. And now we come to the truth that sits behind it all, the one most never discover. Wealth doesn't scream. It whispers. You see, the people who chase money the loudest often don't keep it. They flash it. They burn it. They wear it as proof that they're winning, even when they're barely surviving. But Wealth, true wealth, moves differently. It's quiet. It's disciplined. It builds in the background, while others are distracted by noise. It looks like the guy who drives the same car for 12 years, but owns half the neighborhood. It looks like the woman who skips luxury handbags, but has 6 figures in index funds. It looks like the family that lives below their means, teaches their kids how money works, and quietly builds a life no one needs to envy, because it's built on freedom, not applause. Poor people often think the rich are rich because they have money. But the truth is, they're rich because they know what to do when money comes. They give every dollar a direction. They delay pleasure. They avoid emotional purchases. They protect their time. They study patterns. And most importantly, they value peace over appearance. Now here's the hard part. If you're used to chaos, peace feels boring. If you're used to struggling, discipline feels unnatural. If you're used to getting attention through spending, quiet wealth feels invisible. But hear me, you must learn to fall in love with being unseen while you build. Let others mock you for skipping the latest trends. Let them laugh because you said no to a night out. Let them wonder why you're not chasing every shiny thing. Because one day, while they're still trying to look rich, you'll be free to choose. Free to walk away. Free to build without fear. Free to help others without hesitation. That's the kind of wealth no one can take from you. So no, poor people don't stay poor because they don't make enough. Many poor people make good money. They stay poor because they never change the patterns that drain their energy, hijack their focus, and spend their future in advance. The good news? You can change. Not all at once, not overnight, but slowly, steadily, with each decision you make differently. So start small. Track where your money goes. Question every emotional purchase. Read about wealth, not just trends. Surround yourself with people who build, not just buy. Learn to sit with discomfort without trying to spend it away. And most importantly, remember this. Wealth is not a number. It's a mindset. If you build that mindset, the money will follow. It has no choice.